instead of her doorway. At 25, she remembers before to protect the mountain she birthed, weary, for she is too frail to shield his whole life from minors. She prays and plots murders. So the last poem I'm going to do is really recent, actually. I don't know if I'm done editing it yet. It's called The Politics of a Skirt. The slit of her skirt dissembles itself by corner whistles, hissing from groins blathering to dive in her rib. It waves goodbye, crashing between itself and her thigh. It negotiates between the shores of hand, cobble, and streetlight. It floods her mud-faced mascara, busted red lipstick, and stop sign, balancing itself so it won't drown in the liquid foray of sidewalk men who want to slit in the womb of her earth, hold their flag on her heartland just to say that they can, that it was easy. So thank you. That's going to come up, her name is Anesi Baez. So sad because she's Dominican just like me, you know. Anesi Baez, she is the author of My Daughter's Eyes and Other Stories and the winner of the Curbstone Press Marmol Prize for First Latina Fiction. Currently, she is the director of the Lehman College Counseling Center, where she provides mental health services to college students. She also made it a point to tell me that she's also a poet, but she didn't give up, but she kind of gave up poetry to write fiction. But poetry is what inspires her to write the fiction. So please help me welcome Anesi Baez to the stage.
Thank you. It's true. I started writing poetry, and slowly my poetries began to sound like stories, and they were, and I wrote them as stories, but poetry inspires me to write the fiction that I write. But today I'm going to read you some poetry. I'm going to start first with the poem that's in our little packet, and the poem is called Flow, and I was very proud that the poem was published in Callaloo, which is a Johns Hopkins University literary journal, and it was the first time that Johns Hopkins, well, it was the first time anyone had put together an anthology of Dominican American poets and writers. And so we all sent our poems and our fiction, and three of my poems were able to be published in Callaloo, and one story that came out in my collection, My Daughter's Eyes and Other Stories. And it's true, I am a psychotherapist most of my life for the past 27 years. I'm a social worker, and I provide clinical services to children, families, and right now I'm working in college, so I provide services to students. So it's a lot of depression, anxiety, suicide, and everything that you hear is all true. Flow. When I wrote Flow, I was actually a faculty at New York University teaching clinical social work, and I thought I would never write it again. So I would write on my metro train to NYU and on my metro train back. And I wrote about 60 poems, and I sent a few out, and about 2 of them were published, and then I got very busy with my life, and I couldn't publish the others. But this was one of the poems that I called the collection. I called it the River Poems, because they all were inspired by the Hudson River. Flow. My husband kneels before me, opens my legs, and rests his head upon my right thigh. I stroke his face, his beard in trace with the tip of my index finger, the shape of his nose. I caress his bald head where gray, wiry hairs fight back the test of time. I kiss his bald spot as if my kisses could make things grow. Overwhelmed as I am by my loving feelings for him, I take a deep breath and think of love. How precious it is when one is present and it is happening. So calm like the flow of the river in the morning, muddy ice at times, thick turbulent waves at others, like love unpredictable. And because of this, I enjoy this time of loving, breathing in this memory to retrieve it like a jewel when the time comes. The other poem that I'm going to read, there's two poems that are about my love for my father. I loved my father. I was such a daddy's girl. And the first two poems are about him. For a long time when I was a child, I slept with my father every night. It was something he discouraged but quietly encouraged with his acceptance. I would sneak out of my room ready to battle the dark shadows of spirits only children are known to see. And I would pray a prayer my father taught me, a prayer that was a shield from danger. And I would pray this prayer about a guardian angel, and I'd run through the hole of darkness into his bedroom. When I arrived, I would catch my childlike breath, gather my thoughts together, and calm my little beating heart. I would have battled any monster, any demon or ghost for the chance of having my father's body next to mine. Once near him, I would sink into the hollow of his back, curl there like a fetus, growing straight out of his spine. And when he moved in his sleep, I would clench my leg upon his hip to make sure he would not leave me. My leg there propped on top of his hairy thigh was an emotional alarm clock. Any movement he made would immediately register to my heart, and I would awaken from the deepest sleep, for it was as if in sleeping with him, I was sheltered from the cruel hands of death. For he was, to me, both mother and father. He was my safety and my life force. My father never betrayed my love and my trust. He was awed by the strength of my love and devotion. It was later, when I grew, and my mind grew to be a woman's mind, and I had thoughts other than the ones that came from him, it was then he felt utterly betrayed by my own. My parents' room. My parents' room was small with the scent of camphor stick and bay rum, for my mother suffered from many ailments, some real and others totally imaginary. Above one of the bureaus was my father's precious altar with a smiling Buddha and a porcelain statue of La Virgencita de la Gracia. He stood quietly in the silence with Jose looking perplexed and staring at baby Jesus. I could swear La Virgencita knew my moves, understood my thoughts. In the center of the altar, a candle remained lit all night long, surrounded by faded sepia photographs of dead relatives or lost relatives and wrinkled prayers to heal all wounds. La Virgencita's light brown eyes seemed real, for they glittered in the darkness, while the candle below her flickered, startled by my sight. Many times I thought I heard La Virgencita speak to me and stare at me with disapproving eyes. On those nights, I dared to run through the hole of ghosts and penetrate myself between the warmth of my parents, to taste with my senses the feel of my father. On those nights, I never dared to look at La Virgencita's eyes. Instead, I stared at the floor or the profile of my father, willing to kiss him and implore his forgiveness for the deep childlike longings I had for him. On those nights, I would quickly throw myself in between my parents without forethought or strategy. Luckily, my mother often stirred in her sleep and faced the wall, and I would feel such a relief and intense personal triumph, as if I had secretly won some unknown battle against her. And the last poem I'll read is, I was working a long time ago. I used to be the director of a trauma center in Yonkers, and I was working with a family, and they were homeless, and one of the children I had, because the children stayed with us in the residential program, they were mostly traumatized and sexually abused, but not all of them. This child was not. And I was able to get the family a nice apartment in Yonkers. It was clean, it was beautiful, I was so happy. And I took the mother and the daughter to see this new apartment. And the daughter was completely disappointed, and I said, what happened? And she said, there are no roaches. This is like something was missing, you know? And I thought that was amazing, and then I started telling her a story about roaches, and the roaches all had like personalities. And then I wrote this poem about that. Tell me more, because she would say, oh, tell me more, tell me more. The child says her nana moved from the motel because she did not want her playing with roaches. Really, I say, tell me more. She is 5 years old, brown skinned with a mass of curly hair. She smells of popcorn and warm rain. The roaches were my friends, she says. She would talk to them. They kept her company. She preferred the big brown mother roaches. They liked her. They fell asleep in the palm of her while she caressed them. But her nana said roaches are disgusting. She should not play with them. And then they moved. I confessed I too played with roaches back when I was a child and lived in the South Bronx. And I also confessed that I gave my roaches name and fed them late at night. She giggles and says, tell me more. I had 3 favorite roaches, Mocha, Chocolate, and Fifi the roach. My first favorite Mocha was the dusty brown smarty pants, who the others call Mocha la Loca because she loved to go to school. I often held her in my pocket, secretly hiding her identity from my teachers and friends. Inside my desk, she would learn the lesson of the days, on those school days when the air smelled of old books and wet wood. My second favorite was Chocolate. She was a spunky dark sweetie pie who spoke different versions of la lengua española from Spanish, English to Castilian, and she liked to dance flamenco. Chocolate was a good cook and knew the art of caring for others, loved to ride the L train and visit Greenwich Village on Sunday afternoons. Chocolate was black as midnight, and I could spot her in the distance, crawling on the wall on those white moonlight nights when the air smelled of withered roses and sweat. My third favorite was tiny little Fifi the roach. She was mixed-race, small, white, an artist who loved to travel, dreaming of days when she would visit Paris friends. Wearing makeup and a French hat, Fifi loved to hang out on the windowsill near the fire escape. And there she would sing these ancient boleros like Mucho Gatica and Felipe Videla, the old love songs my father liked, the ones that choked me into crying. When elated, Fifi would open her wings like a rosebud and she would fly singing on those nights. The air smelled of freedom and love, and they were all my favorite roaches, and their dreams were very much like mine. Thank you. So I am going to introduce Celia. I'm just going to say a few things about her. And Celia is our next poet. Celia Reyes. She's an Argentinian poet living in Worcester, New York. She has published 2 books of poetry, Talking to Myself and Reflections, Reflexiones. She's also a professor in the School of Liberal Arts at Mercy College for the past 15 years. And I just want to say something personal about Celia. I just met Celia, and I am just awed by her sensitivity and kindness. It's like you just want to hug her. She's just such a lovely, wonderful, caring person. It's like her humanity is like in just her whole aura. It's like I want to take her with me. I want to know her forever. So, introducing Celia.